Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Big Decisions for Anfield Index. No, you are not in a vortex. This is the right way around. It is me hosting tonight, Dave Davis, coming to you from the sun is still shining, although it's a bit of a trace description act because it's freezing here in Edinburgh. And I am joined in, he doesn't like the reference, so he won't go Jamie Lee Curtis, we'll go a Lindsay Lohan style. Freaky Friday. My old mucker, Trev Downey. How are we, sir?
Yeah, good, man. I was saying to you just before the mics went live there, I have a chest infection. So if I sound a bit wheezy, you're going to have to forgive me, folks. And it is just completely psychotic here. It has lamped down rain. So again, you may hear that. I can't make any allowances for it because we're under a Velux window here as well. So just bear with me, guys, if there's a bit of atmos there in the background, including from my chest.
So fingers crossed. If Trev passes out during this, I'll just make all the decisions. We'll go with that, ladies and gents. So you know how we work on big decisions. 3 big topics, 3 big calls. There are no splinters in the arse allowed. We've got to make definitive decisions because, as Liverpool have to, for this season, contracts, matches, Christ, there's about 1,000,001 things to sort. And we'll actually get into the first topic, Trev, straight away. Contract conundrum, as we're calling it. Now, we'll separate Ibu a little bit from this because that's probably smarter for our big topic. But for all the contracts Liverpool did and didn't get sorted during the summer, there's still a fair few coming up because just looking at this, people, I mean, we'll discount a few with the greatest of respect to Freddie Woodman, who may never play a single senior minute for Liverpool. But Robbo, a year left to go. I mean, we'll also separate the superstars a little bit. Endo, 2 years. Joe Gomez, 2 years. Curtis Jones, 2 years. Stefan Bajcetic, 2 years. I mean, we've got a fair few players to think about here, Trev. And if we are playing Richard Hughes, what do we do here? I mean, we'll start with the skipper. The vice captain jumped in and promoted him then, didn't I? Andy Robertson. A nice story, a nice speech, talked about literally the other day, Trev. You've probably seen it. You know, I made the decision. I had the option, but I wanted to stay. We committed to staying, was what he said. Is this one last hurrah? Or could there be potential maybe for more?
So my take on this, Dave, was that I saw that interview with Robbo and I found that it was possibly a little bit I'm not saying he was being disingenuous, but I do think that there was an offer or two there that he was interested in. We certainly know that if the Atletico thing had worked out, that there was talk at the time that and I think that would have been good for him, for his ego at this stage of his career, for his life experience at this stage of his career and all the rest of it, and keep him in the place where he currently is, which is captaining Scotland. But it's going to become an issue for him if he's not getting a game, and it's fairly obvious that the new man is the preferred option. And if he turns out to be quite bulletproof, I think Robbo's time is kind of very, very much limited. It felt to me like the writing was on the wall a little bit. So here I am, Dave, and I'm thinking, was this like a borderline sentimental decision? The vice captaincy thing, to do the year, to let him be that guy for the year, and then we'll see how it goes, see how we've landed at the end of the year, see how useful he's been on the park and all the rest of it. And I think that's exactly where we are. I'd say there'll be a sort of revisiting of the whole thing in the summer. And Robbo may then at that stage, depending on the lack of minutes or depending on maybe he gets a meaningful contribution this season, he'll make a different decision then. I think the club have allowed him to actually make that decision, if you know what I mean. And I think there's evidence of almost Klopp era sentimentality in him getting the vice captaincy over Mo Salah. It was a weird one to me. Not that Robbo is a fantastic character and a real kind of leader in the dressing room and a real sort of loud voice. I can see why he would be perfect for the role, but it just seemed a bit odd to me that you wouldn't give it to someone who's going to be on the park a lot. because there's no guarantee, right, that if Virgil's taking a step out, that Robbo will be into the team at all. So it's going to be Mo anyway. So yeah, I find the whole thing a little bit weird, and I think he may well be part of what I suggested to you could be quite a bit bigger of a churn again next summer than people are expecting.
Do you know what? As you said it actually reminded me. Do you remember? People forget this bit, but when Klopp did the bits on the stage for his very last game and he did the singing, everyone remembers that. What people forgot a little bit before was the presentations. Do you remember when Ox came out and he got the big placard with all the trophies, and then Joel Matip came out and he got the same, Thiago Alcantara? It does feel a little bit like you say. It could just be one of those at the end of the season, couldn't it? A nice presentation, tears and types of things, but dressed up, exactly as you said, with a little tinge of sentimentality. But that's maybe just the way football goes a little bit. And in terms of leadership, I adore this player. I really do, because even against Arsenal, he comes on for the last 15, gum shield in, ready to fight. And if he can't quite nick the legs of Victor Gyökeres going through, he jumps on his back and brings him down, takes the yellow card, hook or by crook. And it surprised a lot of people that Endo stayed this season. I think many thought, and we had an inkling it could be moving on because he's not going to get minutes, he's not going to get regular football. He does seem, though, really happy with his lot, Trev, the way it stands at the moment. I mean, 2027, so we'll have a year left to go in the summer. The World Cup will have passed. We can't see Liverpool surely offer him a new deal, but will Endo want to do this for another year on top of this one?
I think these two guys could be very much of the same mind by the end of the season, but for slightly different reasons, because I don't see either of them getting enough time on the field for them to feel like they are contributing meaningfully. Now, I hope I'm wrong, actually, in both cases. I'll be honest with you, I do, because I'm very fond of both footballers. I'd love to see Robbo make a meaningful contribution this season coming. Yeah. Similarly with Endo, I think everyone's very fond of that guy because of his attitude as much as anything else. And I get it with Endo. If you found yourself rocking up at a club like Liverpool, in the moment that we're in now, you'd probably just be counting your blessings and thinking, how did I get this lucky? And yeah. Here I am picking up trophies and I'm on the pitch and, I'm a hero back home and it's wild. And why wouldn't he do that? But I think again, right, he's going to come to, Robbo's a bit older, right? But it's hard to see either of them wanting to be even less involved as they get a little bit older, because I'm telling you right now, I guarantee it, there's going to be meaningful arrivals over the next couple of windows. You tied that in with a story this morning on Newsround about Arne's contract and the little throwaway thing about how he was promised world-class footballers in the windows to come. That's not a small piece of information. That's quite a big piece of information. It's not like he's going to have to make do and mend, and so that you're going to keep throwing these veterans at it with diminishing returns. So I think both of the lads are going to be in a situation where they're going, I wouldn't mind playing now, because hopefully they'll be off the back of yet another big win or maybe two big pots. And I'm thinking they'll say to themselves, well, maybe now this is where I go to X or Y. Maybe Endo goes back to Germany. Maybe he goes closer to home. Maybe Robbo goes to Celtic or something. Yeah. Those two guys, I think, may well have a similar thought process on what's left of their career at the end of this season. So for that reason, I think Endo equally will be eyeing up the exit door, not because of any other reason except that, well, I've done really well here and I still want to play for a bit. And I get that. That's what footballers want to do, Dave.
It is crazy when you think about it that way. But similar to you, it's just they will have decisions to make. But I actually think you're right. I think in the nicest possible sense, decisions will get made for them. And then, what follows will follow. This one is a strange statement, even in the modern era. In the summer, Trev, Joe Gomez, if he does the full season, is entitled to a testimonial. I don't think you ever say that in the modern football era, but that is factual. Joe Gomez is entitled to a testimonial. He has a deal till 2027, and everyone loves Gomez. Of course they do, the squad, the fans. But it's telling that Liverpool on deadline day were prepared to ship him out to AC Milan, who pulled the plug because they didn't have enough time for the medical. Brighton made a move for him as it came out. The deal just couldn't be done because of the wage coverage and, what was involved in all that. And obviously Mark Guehi, which we'll come to, that put the kibosh on a lot of things. The fact Liverpool were willing to do that this summer, the testimonial year as well, Gomez sticking around, do you reckon, past this summer at all?
But this is even tougher to see. And hence, I'm going back to that word churn, because I'm kind of 3 for 3 here now in terms of lads I think will probably head for the exit door. And the reason I think Joe will is because you said it yourself there. It was a really interesting way that you framed it, because AC Milan wanted to do their due diligence on Joe's dodgy knees.
Yeah.
But they were interested in Joe Gomez, and Brighton were interested in Joe Gomez. And we know there's several other Premier League clubs who'd be more than happy to have Joe Gomez on their books and would take a punt on those dodgy knees. So with that in mind, you can't listen. He came on the last day and he was absolutely freaking immense. He was just a reminder of how good he is. Like, his stats in those few minutes were nuts, but it wasn't even just that, because sometimes those things can lie to you. It was the eye test of watching this guy striding around, a pure colossus in that period of time he was on the pitch. Look, if he can do that over several matches this season and contribute meaningfully to another title, maybe even a Champions League, I mean, that's the dream, and I would love that for him. It's funny, isn't it? The testimonial thing is such a sort of throwback to when you and I were nippers watching football, and lads they really wanted the testimonial because it was an earner for them, and they weren't on this absurd money that lads are on now, and they were thinking about, well, maybe I can get enough to buy that pub, and that's my retirement plan, that type of thing. Now these guys give the money predominantly to their charity or to their foundation or whatever.
Yeah,
it's more the point of the service that he's done. I think he'll see this as an opportunity for him to have another chapter, and a bit like Endo and a bit like Robbo, I'm sure he would want to actually have a bit of football in the tail end of his career. And it will make it all so much easier for us, for them, if we're coming off the back of another big pot or two, because then they can go, hey, I'm walking away on a high here. And that is the dream. Not that we want to see any of those three guys going, because I love them all. But realistically speaking, you just said it. The club were happy to let Joe go. So why do we think it would be any different this summer, even if he does do well? Because it was never about his talent. So I'm 3 for 3 here, buddy. I think he's out the gap as well.
3 for 3 so far with 2 to go, and probably I think we build to the most difficult one, and the reason for that is Curtis Jones, 2 years left to go on his deal, and we always talk about 2 years of this golden period, like renew or move on. You don't want to let it get to a year, and obviously what that could envisage, and we know what's happened with certain players. The thing with Curtis, Trev, is he will look at his midfield colleagues and think, I'm in that rotation. He will look and think, Florian Wirtz has come in on a pretty penny, as we know. There's no two ways about that. He will look and say, well, Szoboszlai and McAllister, they came in on tasty wages at the same time. Ryan Gravenberch, we know the deal he was on at Bayern Munich and how we tempted him across. So he will be looking for probably parity, won't he, across that midfield area, and thinking, well, you sold Harvey Elliott as well. You moved others down the rankings for me. I should be getting parity or somewhere around that metric. Do you think Liverpool will be willing to do that, though? Is this a tougher one than we're thinking?
Yeah, that's the really interesting one there, because you could see that might be where there'd be a bit of a disharmony between the club and the player, because if he doesn't feel like he's being respect it, whatever they offer him, and they, we know, are hard-nosed about these things. So I am nervous about that for Curtis. I do think there's a good chance Curtis ends up being a one-club man, because nobody wants to think about this.
No.
Especially when we're talking about yet another player later on in our show here today, being sort of tapped up and eyed up by Real Madrid. But I think there could be a third one. And I would not be surprised if we saw McAllister do a stint in Spain.
Yeah.
And so, again, like I said, I think the churn will continue. And if we get a Wharton in and Mac goes, someone like Curtis, keeping him around, it's a no-brainer, because he can cover the 8, he can cover the 6. Yeah. He has tremendous talent. He can be a good out ball, just like a real technique merchant. So I think it makes absolute sense to keep him around. So then it just comes back to that original idea. Will they be able to come to some sort of solution financially that he's happy with and the club are happy with? And I think they will, because the homegrown aspect, the Swiss Army knife aspect of him in midfield, and even a little bit further forward. And hell, Jesus, if you had to, you could probably ask Curtis to play full back for you. Yeah. So I think he's one of those guys that will be happy to keep around. And I think he will likely be happy to be around if, and this is the big if, Dave, if the playing time is decent this season. And, if he thinks, right, okay, well, maybe the likes of a Mac might leave. So even if we do get in a Wharton or, the lad from Brighton.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'll still have a space in this rotation. So he's the first one I think will stay around, David. Again, depending on that money, and hopefully that doesn't get too acrimonious.
Yeah, I think you're right as well. Whenever you have a title-winning squad, you'll always have your stars, but you always need that bracket just under the stars who play regular minutes, have a real impact, and he is right there. And if anyone doubts that, look at the Arsenal game on Sunday. Him coming on was a big part in why we won that change of the game as well. So he really does have a place in the squad. You're right. It can't become acrimonious. That is one for me as well. We need to get done. Simple as that. Which brings us on to a final one. And we've almost been going down the ages a bit, Benjamin Button style, and we go right down here. A 20-year-old, Trev, a 20-year-old who came from Celta Vigo, Stefan Bajcetic, who, go back 4 years ago, people had real high hopes for. And since then, it's just been injury after injury. The club have kept him around this summer, but it does sound that he's playing that Tyler Morton role, break glass in case of emergency, that if everything goes to plan, it's more they didn't get a deal, he maintains his value, all those types of things. But Stefan Bajcetic will only have 1 year left to go in the summer after Liverpool have invested so much time in his recovery, loans, all these bits. What are you seeing happening with young Badge?
So in the same way that I think the era change from Klopp to Slot has had a big impact in different areas of how we play on the pitch, and maybe the attitude to the squad and the squad shape and how we recruit and all those kind of things. The most obvious one is in terms of that loyalty to his boys thing that Klopp had.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, if Stefan had been fit for the summer, a proper offer comes in, I don't think he's here.
Yeah.
You saw how we sold the likes of Tyler Morton, and I just think he'd have been gone as well for whatever few shekels we could pick up for him. And it's just possibly the only thing that's actually a saving grace for the guy is, and maybe for us as well, is that we'll want to build his value back up because he was so highly rated. But that drops away very quick when you're not on the park. It just does. And we've seen it happen. You could argue that, we could argue that we've seen some evidence of that quite recently. So for me, this is a massive season for him, that he needs to actually get on the pitch a little bit, and he needs to contribute in that way. So I'm hopeful for the kid. But at the end of the day, Dave, I can see him getting lost in the mix this season because Arne likes who Arne likes, and he has a tight squad that he likes to use. He's not a big rotation merchant, so I think Stefan's going to get very difficult to get those minutes to make that impression, to grow his value. So maybe another loan at Christmas or something when he gets his fitness back? I don't know, buddy, but I would not be optimistic for Bajcetic being around too much longer. It sounds like I want to push everyone out. I don't. I'm trying to be realistic about what you know. So for me, I think he's another one that if he can manage to build up a little bit of value via a loan, maybe for the second half of the season, I think the club will move him on without a moment's hesitation. I could be completely wrong.
It's so hard to predict, and I think at the end we're going to have to come up back to squad impact and what might happen next summer, especially when we talk about certain players' contracts. But I think there we have it, people. I think you're realistically talking that it's likely to be Robbo's last year. Joe Gomez, probably similar, feels like he waltzes in to a new team. Endo, a lot of these, if Arne Slot is going to get these world-class talents, some may have to move on. That's just the nature of the game. Curtis Jones, we need a resolution from that. And yeah, as Trev says, Stefan Bajcetic, it's hard to see a future at Anfield. Who knows what will happen? We will come back to the squad element, but contract conundrum, the decision on that, people, Richard Hughes are going to be busy all summer again. Don't think he's getting it off after a big one. It's just gone. There is a big one coming up again. We will step back into that. In terms of the here and now, though, Trev, we'll start with this. It seems like with all the other news, all the other things around it, and the fact that international football's just crap, we are still buzzing that we've got 125 million British record signing. We are still buzzing off this, aren't we?
Oh, man, it's so exciting. And I think the way the window ended, it was weird. Natural pessimists had something to lean into, and they almost didn't allow themselves the joy of finally getting this one over the line. And it's massive for us. I'm literally buzzing about seeing that guy play for Liverpool. I love the idea that we may have a really, really effective goal scoring 9. It's so exciting to think, how does he factor into the team? How does the shape change? Is there a version where him and Hugo Ekitike can be in the team with maybe Ekitike playing slightly left? It's just really, really exciting. If you're not thrilled about this possibility and this potential, you're kind of doing it wrong. But it's more complicated than that, isn't it? Because I haven't been able to enjoy the last couple of weeks, not because of international football being a thing, but because I'm worried about this kid and the setup. And I know you're going to go there.
Yeah, I think brass tacks, that's what we're going to have to make the call on, because no pre-season at all because of the extenuating circumstances, the saga that dragged on and on right till deadline day. And then this bit, Trev, he goes to the Sweden camp and he plays absolutely 0 minutes in their first game, which John Dahl Tomasson, the Swedish manager, comes out and said, no pre-season, no matches, and that's fine. And now he's on the bench for the Kosovo game, which kicks off in about 45 minutes' time. If he doesn't play a single minute in that Kosovo game, and maybe, I don't know if we do want him to, we don't want him to, that's part of it. Does it not just seem a wasted international trip in the sense of, couldn't we have just kept him behind closed doors with friendlies and training? It just seems a bit weird, doesn't it?
Yeah, I get it very hard to believe that there wasn't some sort of an arrangement at this level with a player that's just broken records in terms of transfer, all the drama around it, all the sort of, I'd say, completely understandable concerns about his, it's 2025, his mental health in the wake of all of that drama and being utterly pilloried and vilified in the media across the board by people who should know fucking better, Dave, and they don't, and they're an embarrassment. Some of these pundits were an embarrassment. speaking about players like their chattel, like their sort of possessions, and talking with big sanctimonious heads on them about morality and the right way to do things. And listen, I'm increasingly of the opinion that you get one go round in life, and you certainly get one go round as a professional footballer.
Yeah,
you do you, and if he wants this move and he felt that it had been ironed out, then I have no issues with what he did. I do think that you bring up something really interesting here. There must be an arrangement, because otherwise it's just like a sort of a shit busman's holiday for him to go away, be with a few of his pals when he's actually got something really important to do, where he could be making his new pals and getting to know the city, getting to know his new place, making sure he's got the right pillow to sleep on. You know what I mean? These kind of basic things that he needs to sort out, and getting, like you said, that training work done under the eyes of the coaches and staff that he will be working with. So I've seen someone in the chat you just posted there, quite certain that he won't play tonight.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, I'll throw it back to you, man. Like, do you actually really want him to? Because part of me thinks, well, this is one of the most pointless things ever if he doesn't play. And we do need him to start playing football. And if he's not, maybe if it means he's back sooner for us, then I'm all for it in a way. I actually am all for it. Like, footballers need to play football. But of course, and this is where I'll throw it back to you, does the injury concern outweigh the fitness concern? It could happen in training back in Liverpool as well. So I don't know.
It could. And I was swithering on this a little bit. But what I'm thinking is, and I can't get away from it, if he doesn't play a single minute against Kosovo, whether it's predetermined, whether it's a chat, whatever that reason is there not a world where Liverpool could have said to Sweden, listen, we're going to keep him for 2 weeks because obviously he's not going to play for you. And Liverpool have a plan. We know Ruben Peters and all, the S&C department know their stuff, but there could have been an intense 2 weeks of, we're going to get you up to speed. You're going to play probably maybe 1, maybe 2 behind closed doors friendlies, that no one knows about. And you maybe have, I'm making it up now, but 15 minutes in one, half an hour in one, something like that, with the idea of, we're going to manage him carefully. And maybe they've got a date in mind, and we'll talk about that shortly. But wouldn't that just have made a lot more sense for everyone? Because then when they're talking to Sweden about the next international break in October, they could have almost sort of joined the dots for them a little bit. Because essentially, if Sweden aren't going to play him for a single minute, what the hell was the point when we could have had that back? And like you said, get his house sorted, everything else. Surely that would have just helped everyone across the board.
It's really weird. And so it brings us back then to, even if he does play tonight, when do we realistically see a meaningful contribution from him? So we have Burnley, right, on Sunday at Turf Moor. Then we have the following Wednesday,
Atletico, isn't it?
We start with Atletico at Anfield, and then it's the derby on the Saturday at Anfield as well. If I was to say I'd like to see him get a few minutes against Everton, I already have the fear even articulating that sentence, because you know what Everton like to do to our footballers in terms of just kicking them up in the air and season-ending tackles and the like. But it's probably the most likely. I think it might even be a bit fanciful, actually. So if we run it, then there's a Carabao Cup game. Not a chance. So maybe Crystal Palace on the 27th,
which is the Guehi derby, as you could call it. That's, like you say, the spice to that all of a sudden. And then if there's not enough spice in that, it's the famous Welcome to Hell and Galatasaray right at the Istanbul, right at the end. Is it fair to say, when you're looking at this, there's not one where you're thinking, nice, easy league game at home, we could do 3 or 4. There's just not in this midst, is there?
The only thing that resembles that is the Carabao Cup game against Southampton. And that's by no means a gimme. And like, if you see the likes of him playing that or Virgil van Dijk playing that, you really want to jump into the telly and shake someone. So I don't know, man. Maybe we're overthinking this. Maybe he gets a couple of minutes against Atletico, a couple of minutes against Everton, and starts against Palace. Who knows, buddy? It's hard to know where he's at. I read and listened to some very interesting conversations about where his fitness might be and about the type of fitness that he might have built up, and about how these professional footballers are the kind of creatures that need to work with other professional footballers to get that tempo right. So he could be fit as a fiddle, but that's not what we're really talking about here. So I think I've come all the way back full circle. And for once, I'm going to watch some other lads' football and see if Sweden versus Kosovo gives me some tasty Isak moments to savor. And hopefully he gets match fit ASAP, buddy.
Yeah, it is just so hard. But we know the format of big decisions and we always agree we'll make a call for it. So where is your gut? And I suppose if I've got to phrase it carefully and fairly, where is the first game Alexander Isak may play half an hour or more for Liverpool?
All right, so you go there half an hour or more for Liverpool. I do think it's going to be Palace. I don't think you do that to him in Turkey, and I think Chelsea's too long to wait the 4th of October. So I think he gets a half an hour against Palace in London, and maybe I'm being ridiculously optimistic there, but that would be my shout. What about you?
Yeah, it's the only. I am leaning towards Palace, and I sound like a politician as I say this. If it's disaster stations against Everton, say it is a situation where I know it's an early kickoff, but it's not going well.
Yeah.
I can see him coming on, but my gut is still telling me that's 15 maybe minutes is like an emergency, a Chiesa type at the end. So I've got to be honest. I think Palace is before we're seeing real minutes. And I can see people in the chat panel like, surely he should have been keeping fit. And I get this, but I think we need to be crystal clear on this, Trev. There's a difference between keeping fit, semblance of match fitness, and when we're starting to ramp up the serious business with Champions League, being ready to go. There is a huge difference between that, isn't there?
That's exactly what I was saying. That was the point I was trying to make, is that like they're all fit. I mean, you look at the condition that Mo Salah comes back in, and he's the trendsetter at our club. But Alexander Isak, he knew that he was going to want to be playing as soon as possible, so he will be physically in as good a condition. And the thing is, he's been training with a club official who's making sure that he's doing the right things. That's just these are the arrangements that professional athletes have. But the tempo of working with teammates is an entirely different thing, and getting actual match fit. Listen to any of the podcasts with Jan Mulby that I've done over the years, where he'll tell you there's a difference between having your match legs and actually just being fit as a fiddle. So I think, I love the idea of, in case of emergency, break glass around Isak and throw him on the derby and he can do something dramatic. Love that. But I think we're in agreement that it's probably going to be Palace before we see anything of a sample size at all from the lad.
Yeah, I think we need to brace ourselves, people. As much as there is a British record signing, no chances will be taken, and you may just be waiting a good few weeks longer to see serious minutes. But we will have to see what develops on that. And the third and final one, it's a bit of Guehi and Konaté talk, which, I mean, if the transfer window goes differently, which we do the deal sheet one, we're talking about it late a week ago or so, Trev. I mean, it's just crazy. We're expecting Guehi to happen, and it breaks on air, doesn't he, that Palace have pulled the plug on it, basically. So that's a non-starter. And we've kind of sort of progressed over that a little bit. But then, even today, there's a couple of things coming out with Ibou Konaté. And I do want to step into his comments, first of all, because the talk from the UK media always sounds good, and we're in talks with his agent. That all sounds great. And then he disappears on international duty and just likes to throw in something. And this time it was a case of, Real Madrid, signing for them. Mbappe's texting me every sort of 2 hours. And it's tongue-in-cheek to French television. but it just wasn't needed or what we wanted to hear, was it?
You look at Ekitike was asked about how he feels about, Isak arriving. And he's just so laid back and saying all the right things. And it's not, I suppose the point I'm trying to make here, it's not difficult to do. And Ibu Konaté is a clever boy. And he understands exactly what he's at. Yeah. And he might come across as like, oh, it's just lighthearted and nobody can say, I didn't say anything. We're just teasing. We're just joking. He may even think in his own way he's playing it down, but that's not the effect that those kind of things have on the fan base. And I'm already seeing unhinged hatred towards the lad because they're already assuming that Madrid are going to do another one of those things where they take one of our top talents on a free or effectively on a free. And we're looking at seeing the boys get another 10 million out of them so he can go there early or something again. And a bit like with Isak, if a lad has made up his mind to go, or if a lad fancies something else, just do it. There's literally nobody who's too big, nobody bigger than Liverpool. No. And we know that the churn is going to be real. Most of us have kind of made our peace with the fact that I actually thought it would be Paris that he'd go to, but I get Real Madrid because it's the PlayStation team. You get a chance to play for the PlayStation team. You're going to do it. Most lads are going to do it. So I'm kind of very at peace with the fact that he's going to go, and maybe Guehi comes in, and maybe it's somebody else, because you and I were talking about the fact that there are definitely other people who are looked at and maybe even thought of as better prospects than Mark Guehi, but just not available. What was the phrase you used on the show this morning? What was it? Market option
opportunity. Yeah.
Market opportunity. Right? Yeah. So like, and I know you're going to get there. We're going to get to Guehi, but just in terms of Konaté, I'm just very much, if he goes, he goes. And I would like to think that we won't let ourselves get caught with our trousers down metaphorically and not have a plan, a backup. And if it is Mark Guehi and another first teamer, okay, I'm good with that.
Do you know what? We do love a movie reference on our pods. And I can't do Michael on the Steps, but the way you said that, it had that tinge of an Ivan Drago, Rocky IV, he dies type of thing. So does have a little bit of a feeling on that. And I mean, even in the last sort of 48 hours, we had Ibu's comments, we had Fabrizio Romano talking about the link to Real Madrid, and even about an hour and a half before we went live, me and you were WhatsApping, because the stories are breaking again in Spain, aren't they? That this is very close, apparently. It's very advanced, the contract talks between Ibu and Real Madrid. Is this just the old classic, there's no smoke without fire in this one?
Well, it's weird, isn't it? Because you're watching the stories and they're oscillating wildly between there's no movement at all, and he just keeps rejecting these offers from Liverpool. And then there were some good news stories. He seemed to be saying positive things, or you could interpret the things he was saying as positive. And then he went from having an absolute nightmare of a couple of games to playing really well in the last one. And it was pure Roy Hodgson gif. You were like, oh, and then, because we're hit with that nonsense again today from all corners about how it's a done deal. And it does traumatize people because they think, oh, they're taking one of our players for nothing again. And it's like, all right, relax. If we're letting him go, if he's going to go at the end of his contract, he's going to go. That's how contracts work.
Yeah.
And if he says no, he just wants to sign a new contract, then he says no, he just wants to sign a new contract. And you can be sure that our boys would be beavering away on who's going to be a replacement. We love Konaté. Like I said about the players earlier on in the first part of the show, he's a guy that we have great fondness for. But if his eyes are elsewhere, dude, let him walk away, just like with Trent. And, even less bitterness with Konaté, obviously, because it doesn't seem to have that aspect to it. Although, someone check his Duolingo, I'd say.
Yeah, there was, to be fair. As Chris Baskin said, if it's not agreed by Christmas time, he's probably going to have a GCSE in Spanish. I did think that was quite a good line.
That's good.
Nah, not a bad line at all. And people already like Midnight Toker putting in the chat there, Guehi, a much more rounded player. So a lot of people have jumped to that, haven't they? That Konaté out, Guehi in, we'll move on, and that's how it'll work. But this came out yesterday that Paul Joyce, Chris Bascom almost together, on the alarm. Liverpool, I mean, could Joyce be more any straightforward in the title? Liverpool will not try to sign Mark Guehi in January. That is literally the run seal, does what it says on the tin, headline for any article there. I mean, do you buy this right now, or is this a negotiating ploy?
Look, we have proof in recent years that none of these guys know everything all the time.
Yeah.
And even the likes of Joyce have been really wrong on some big calls. Right. And I think it's too easy to think Ibu goes on a free, Guehi comes in on a free in summer, and it's all good. It's too easy to think we'll go back and we'll pay 20, 25 million. Why would you do that? Why would you do that when you're halfway through a campaign? Unless you're in dire straits. Why would you do that when you can theoretically get the same player for nothing? It's different saying we'll pay 30, 35 or whatever it was for a full season and, set ourselves up with a whole new look. I think already, Dave, the alternatives that we had for Guehi will already be sort of back in play now. And I don't think it's in any way a done deal that we just go straight back for him and take him for a reduced fee at Christmas or a free in summer. I do think Mark Guehi would like that to be the case. And I understand why he would. Yeah. Because I don't think he can blame Liverpool Football Club for what happened there. So I'm sure there's no souring of that relationship or ambition on his front.
No.
But I think he might be just a little bit, he'd need to have to be a little bit wary because Liverpool Football Club will ruthlessly have other big targets that they're looking at as well, who may actually become market opportunities, to use that phrase, at Christmas or next summer.
I think almost in essence that as we're talking this through, and we've said them before on the transfer show, we know Liverpool had a good look at the likes of Van Hecke, Koulirakis, I think it's pronounced, Wolfsburg was looked at big time. Jacquet, the young French centre-half who looks like an aerial beast at Rennes, they've had a real good look at him in the past as well. But they almost landed on Mark Guehi through a combination of his age, his price, Premier League experience, the homegrown. It all kind of stacked up that there was just a bit more ticks in the box. But I do think we are saying on this that as the questions posed on the screen then, Guehi and Konaté intertwined, it just isn't that simple, is it? There's no absolute guarantee that it's Konaté out on a free, although we suspect it, Guehi in. Liverpool will almost look again. And actually, in more ways than one, because he lost out on deadline day. But I think we've got to be honest on this. Mark Guehi could be losing out again from a Liverpool sense, couldn't he?
Yeah, it's interesting there because this is what I was getting. This is the theme of my contributions to the show. Is like, do not discount further massive churn in the squad. And as Mr. 365 boy says there, if Konaté's going, don't we still need another centre half on top of Guehi? Yeah, we do. Yeah. We absolutely do, because we were looking at a situation, you and I, where we were thinking we're going to go into the season, we're going to have Ibu, Virgil, Joe Gomez, and Guehi, with Leone as the promising up-and-comer. So, I mean, it's a completely different situation. If we're going to lose Ibu Konaté and we get Guehi in, well, we're still in the same situation where we need another who is an absolute plug-and-play first-teamer. And, like, we can all delude ourselves that Leone is going to somehow come to the fore this season and be the new Maldini. And Jesus, man, if it happens, no one will be happier than me.
Oh, yeah.
But you can't make plans based around that kind of thing, because that's fantasy land. So, yeah, I absolutely think we're going to need to get another one in, because, and again, let's not be too despondent about this, because the lad could go on until he's 37 or 8 or 40. Of
course.
But there's also the realistic thing that maybe Virgil starts winding down as well. So we do need to have pieces in place for this succession building, succession squad building to stay relevant, competitive for all the big pots, and have that ability to roll into the next season, add another piece, but not as drastic maybe, but just I think there's going to be more recruitment in the centre half category, and like you, man, I think unfortunately for Mark Guehi, it might necessarily be him. I'd be delighted if it is, but it mightn't be now.
You're right, and it almost feels like if it is Mark Guehi, which we'd both be happy with as an option, it might be that he's still ultimately third in the pecking order when Liverpool look at what they want to do and how they want to balance that squad. And I suppose I do want to finish on this because me and you obviously run the transfer show. We do that. And this summer was unprecedented in terms of anything else that we've seen. But we kind of thought, well, that you'll never see the likes again, that type of thing. But if we're saying that Freddie Woodman has this year, Robbo likely to leave on a free, the big question mark around Ibou Konaté, you never know what Alisson wants to do after a World Cup with a year left to go as well. Endo to depart, Joe Gomez to potentially depart, Bajcetic. And then, I mean, you can start working through the contracts of people that have got a few years. Like, there's still that big Chiesa question mark as well. You know, that there's players in the squad that have got question marks over them, Trev. It could just well be a crazy busy summer or January all the way through, couldn't it?
Yeah, I don't see a way the churn doesn't continue, because there's going to be a mixture of the likes of Konaté who may want to walk. Like I said, we may not want to hear this, and maybe I'm maligning the lad, but we might have someone like McAllister who's an automatic first teamer who might want to walk. So if you are in that situation, then the churn is kind of forced on you. And then there are loads of lads there who it's probably best for them and the club if they're moved on. So there is no way that the churn does not continue. No way. And I think people just need to make their peace with that, because it seems to be the way we're headed now. And whereas we'll always have, hopefully, that continuity of some great lads, like you say, even the likes of Ali. We've both heard different things. We know he's happy there, but he's lost all his Brazilian pals. Maybe this is his last year. The potential for change around is massive, and I think to think there won't be a lot of it, I think you might be missing a point.
Yeah, and I think a certain young Marmadash Billy might have something to say about his future if Alisson stays. So honestly, people, when you look at the big decisions, contract conundrums, there's going to be people departing. I think that's it. I think you're going to see quite a bit of churn this summer. Isak, you may well be waiting until Palace to see serious minutes, because when you have no pre-season, when you are involved in the saga of the summer, such is the football life. And Guehi and Konaté intertwined, it might just not be that simple, because we may have to brace ourselves for Konaté departing, maybe Mark Guehi not getting exactly what he wants. Whether we want it or not, gear yourselves up for more of the churn coming next summer as well, which we, of course, will look forward to on the transfer show as ever. And January will come before you know it as well. All it leaves me to say is, for answering all the questions, going through the debates, throwing a few things into the hopper and bringing your points of view, Trev, as ever, no, you're not 100%, so it is muchly appreciated.
That's tremendous, man. Always enjoy doing this show, our chats, regardless of the actual format of the show. Really enjoy it. So thanks to yourself as well, and look forward to the next one.
And ladies and gents, that was another big decisions for Anfield Index.